General Patricia Hayes stood before the massive display screen in the Cheyenne Mountain Command Center. Behind her, dozens of officers and technicians worked at their stations, their faces illuminated by the glow of monitors. The mountain itself had survived the scorching wars, though barely. Deep inside its reinforced core, humanity's last coordinated defense command was coming back to life. "Activate Protocol Omega," she said quietly. The words carried weight. Everyone in the room knew what they meant. Protocol Omega had been created in the final days of the wars, when humanity thought it might face extinction. It was a plan to unite every remaining military asset on Earth, no matter how damaged or outdated. For 23 years it had sat dormant in classified files. Now it was their only hope. Across the planet, hidden facilities began to wake up. In underground hangars beneath the Arizona desert, dust-covered warships felt power flowing through their systems for the first time in decades. On the dark side of the moon, automated systems started bringing weapon platforms online. In the Pacific Ocean, submarine crews received coded messages and began heading toward rally points. Captain Ryan Foster arrived at Cheyenne Mountain 36 hours after receiving his recall order. He walked through corridors he hadn't seen since the wars ended, passing faces both familiar and new. Many were veterans like him, pulled from civilian life. Others were young people who had trained for a war they hoped would never come. In the briefing room, Ryan found himself standing with 40 other pilots. General Hayes entered and everyone snapped to attention. "At ease," she said. "You all know why you're here. An alien vessel is approaching Earth. We've tried communication. They haven't responded. In 24 hours, they'll be in orbital range. We need to be ready." She pulled up images of the alien ship. Ryan felt his breath catch. The thing was enormous, dwarfing anything humanity had ever built. "Your mission is to crew the EDF Valiant, a battlecruiser currently in lunar orbit. She saw action during the wars and has been in mothballs since. We've spent the last 2 days getting her operational. She won't be pretty, but she'll fly and she'll fight." Ryan looked at the other pilots. He saw the same mix of fear and determination on their faces that he felt in his own chest. "What about weapons, General? What do we have that can hurt something that big?" Hayes' expression was grim. "We're working on that. Dr. Vincent Shaw has a research team trying to weaponize some technology we recovered years ago. And Chief Engineer Maria Santos is bringing the orbital defense grid online." In geosynchronous orbit, Maria Santos floated in zero gravity, checking connections on a defense platform that hadn't been used in 20 years. Sweat beaded on her forehead inside her helmet. She had a crew of 12 technicians working around the clock, and they had managed to bring 40% of the grid online. "Alan, how's the power coupling on Platform 7? She called over the comm system. Alan Cooper, a young engineer who had never seen combat, was working on a satellite 300 meters away. "Got it connected, Chief, running diagnostics now." Maria pulled herself along a cable to the next junction box. The orbital defense grid was supposed to have been humanity's shield against missile attacks during the wars. It had never been completed. Now they were trying to use it against an alien threat. The railguns were old, the targeting systems outdated, but they might be enough to at least slow down an attack. "All platforms. This is Santos. We go live in 6 hours. I want final checks on every system. If it doesn't work perfectly, I want to know now." Down on Earth, in a secure facility built into the Australian outback, Dr. Vincent Shaw was having the breakthrough of his career, and possibly the last breakthrough humanity would ever need. 15 years ago, a strange craft had crashed in Antarctica. The government had kept it secret, studying it quietly while the world rebuilt. Vincent had spent the last decade trying to understand the technology. Now he had hours to turn that understanding into weapons. The alien power core sat on a table in front of him, humming with energy. It was a crystalline structure that seemed to generate power from nothing, breaking every law of physics Vincent knew. His team had managed to create 3 copies, crude and unstable, but functional. "If we can adapt these to our shield generators, we might be able to protect at least a few ships," he said to his assistant, a woman named Kate Murphy, who had worked with him for 8 years. Kate was running simulations on her computer. "The energy output is incredible, but it's unpredictable. It could give us shields that actually work against energy weapons, or it could overload and explode." Vincent rubbed his tired eyes. "We tested anyway. We don't have a choice." Back at Cheyenne Mountain, Colonel Betty Morrison was coordinating ground defenses. She was Jake's sister, though they hadn't seen each other in 5 years. She commanded atmospheric fighters and ground-based weapons, the last line of defense if the alien ship attacked from orbit. Her command center was filled with maps and tactical displays. Red dots showed the positions of plasma cannons, experimental weapons that her teams had been installing around major cities. Blue dots marked fighter squadrons. Green dots were ground troops with anti-air weapons. "We're spread too thin," said her second-in-command, a grizzled veteran named Carl Adams. "If they hit multiple targets, we can't cover everything." Betty knew he was right. They had maybe 10,000 soldiers ready for combat, scattered across a planet of 2 billion people. The atmospheric fighters were old, rebuilt from war surplus. The plasma cannons were experimental and might not even work. But it was all they had. Focus on the population centers. If they attack, we save as many civilians as possible. High above Earth, the alien mothership continued its approach. Jake Morrison and his team at the monitoring station watched it every second. They had detected smaller ships launching from the main vessel, scout craft that were now surveying the moon and the space around Earth. Lisa was tracking the scout ships when she noticed something. "Jake, they're scanning something. Look at these electromagnetic readings. They're searching for something specific." Paul brought up the data on his screen. "It's like they're looking for a signal or a signature, not just scanning us randomly." Jake felt a chill. The aliens weren't just exploring. They were hunting for something. But what could Earth possibly have that aliens would want? The answer would come sooner than anyone expected. 48 hours after the alien ship was first detected, it reached Earth orbit and stopped. For 6 long hours, nothing happened. The whole world held its breath. Then every screen on Earth, every computer, every communication device suddenly displayed the same message. The words were in perfect English, as if the aliens had learned the language just by listening to humanity's broadcasts. "Humans of Earth, you possess something that belongs to the collective. Surrender it or be eliminated. You have 1 solar rotation to comply." In Cheyenne Mountain, General Hayes read the message and felt her blood run cold. Around the world, leaders scrambled to understand what the aliens wanted. Nobody knew what humanity possessed that could interest an advanced alien civilization. But one thing was clear. The aliens had given humanity 24 hours to surrender something they didn't even know they had. And if they didn't comply, the aliens promised elimination. Ryan Foster sat in the cockpit of the Valiant, looking down at Earth from lunar orbit. The planet looked beautiful from up here, blue and white and fragile. He had fought to protect it once. Now he would do it again. Maria Santos finished the final connection on the orbital defense grid. Her hands were shaking from exhaustion, but the job was done. The platforms were ready. Vincent Shaw looked at his experimental shields and knew they would have to be enough. There was no more time for testing. Betty Morrison ordered her troops into position and said a silent prayer for them all. And Jake Morrison watched the alien ship and wondered what would happen when the 24 hours ran out. Humanity didn't have whatever the aliens wanted, which meant there would be no surrender. There would only be a fight. The EDF Valiant drifted in the shadow of the moon, her hull scarred from battles fought 2 decades ago. Captain Ryan Foster walked through the corridors of his new command, feeling the subtle vibration of engines that hadn't run at full power in years. Around him, the crew worked frantically to prepare for combat. "Status report," Ryan said as he entered the bridge. Greg Palmer, his weapons officer, looked up from his console. The man was 50 years old and had served on destroyers during the wars. "Railguns are operational, Captain. Missile tubes loaded, but our targeting computers are running on software from before the wars. We're going to have to rely on manual targeting if things get fast." Amy Richardson, the navigator, was younger, maybe 30. She had trained on simulators because there hadn't been any real space combat since she was a child. "Navigation systems are good, sir. I've plotted 17 different evasion patterns based on the alien ship's position." Ryan nodded. The Valiant was one of 12 warships that Earth had managed to get operational. 12 ships against that massive alien vessel. It seemed impossible, but humanity had done impossible things before. Admiral Stephen Blake commanded the fleet from the EDF Defiant, a heavy cruiser that had led the defense of Tokyo during the final months of the scorching wars. At 70 years old, Blake was the oldest active officer in Earth's military. His hair was white, his face lined with decades of hard decisions. But his eyes were sharp and his mind was sharper. He stood on his bridge watching the tactical display that showed all 12 human ships forming up in defensive positions. The alien mothership hung in space above Earth, dark and silent. Its smaller scout ships had retreated back to the main vessel after completing their scans. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from General Hayes," his communications officer reported. Blake nodded. "Put her through." Hayes's face appeared on the screen. She looked exhausted. "Admiral, we've analyzed the alien message. Our best people have no idea what they're looking for. We've checked our databases, our research facilities, everything. We don't have anything that should interest an advanced alien civilization." Blake had suspected as much. "Then they're mistaken or they're lying. Either way, we can't give them what we don't have." "Agreed. You have full authorization to engage if they make any hostile moves. Earth's defense grid is online. Dr. Shaw's shields are installed on the Valiant, Defiant, and Guardian. Use them well." The transmission ended and Blake turned to his tactical officer. "How long until the 24-hour deadline?" 3 hours, sir. 3 hours until humanity would either find peace with the aliens or go to war with them. On one of the orbital defense platforms, Maria Santos was making final adjustments to the targeting system. She had barely slept in 3 days. Her crew was in the same condition, running on coffee and determination. "Chief, we've got a problem with Platform 12. Alan Cooper called from across the station. "The railgun's magnetic accelerator is showing fluctuations. It might not fire correctly." Maria pushed off and floated over to his position. She looked at the readings and cursed quietly. The platform had been in space for 25 years without maintenance. It was a miracle any of them worked at all. "Bypass the safety systems and run it on manual control. It's risky, but we need every gun we have." Alan hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Chief." Maria looked out through the viewport at Earth below. She had been born in New Mexico after the wars. She had never known the old world, only the struggling, rebuilding civilization that came after. This planet was all she had. All any of them had. The aliens would have to go through her to take it. Down on Earth in the Australian research facility, Vincent Shaw made a discovery that changed everything. He was reviewing the data from the Antarctic crash site, looking for any clue about what the aliens might want, when he noticed something in the old files. The crashed ship hadn't been dead. Its power core was still active, still broadcasting a faint signal. A signal that had been transmitting for 15 years, reaching out into space. "Kate, look at this," he said, pulling up the signal analysis. "The aliens aren't searching randomly. They're following this beacon." Kate Murphy leaned over his shoulder, reading the data. Her eyes widened. The crashed ship was calling for help. Or calling them. Vincent felt pieces clicking into place. "We need to examine the artifact more closely. There's something in that power core that they want, something worth crossing the galaxy for." He rushed to the vault where the alien power core was kept. As he approached it, the crystalline structure began to pulse with light brighter than he had ever seen it. Images flashed through his mind, not his own memories but something else. Visions of other worlds, other civilizations, all of them burning. The artifact was alive. Not biological life, but some form of artificial intelligence. And it had a story to tell. Vincent stumbled back, his head spinning. It's not a power core. It's a survivor. The last remnant of a species the aliens destroyed. Meanwhile, in Cheyenne Mountain, General Hayes received reports from around the world. Ground forces were in position. Atmospheric fighters were ready. Civilian populations had been moved to shelters where possible. Earth was as prepared as it could be. Colonel Betty Morrison stood in her command center watching the countdown timer. 2 hours until the deadline. She thought about her brother Jake up in the monitoring station in Colorado. She thought about all the young soldiers under her command. Kids who should have been living normal lives instead of preparing to fight aliens. She thought about the scorching wars and how humanity had nearly destroyed itself. Maybe the universe was giving them a chance to prove they could be something better, or maybe it was just testing them again. Either way, Betty was ready. The alien mothership suddenly came alive with activity. Lights blazed along its hull. Energy readings spiked on every sensor Earth had. Jake Morrison watched from his monitoring station as the alien vessel began to move, rotating to bring massive weapon ports to bear on the human fleet. "They're powering weapons," Lisa said, her voice tight with tension. "Multiple energy signatures." "Jake, they're targeting the Valiant." Jake immediately sent the warning to Admiral Blake. Across the fleet, alarms began to sound. On the Valiant, Ryan Foster felt the ship shudder as Vincent's experimental shields came online. The alien power core they had installed hummed with energy, creating a field of force around the battlecruiser. It was untested technology, possibly unstable, but it was better than nothing. All ships, battle stations. Admiral Blake's voice came over the fleet communication channel. They're making their move. Remember your training. Remember what we're fighting for. Earth is behind us. We will not let them through. Ryan looked at his crew. Greg Palmer was ready at weapons. Amy Richardson had her hand steady on the navigation controls. Around the bridge, men and women who had answered the call to defend their home waited for the order to engage. The alien mothership finished its rotation. For a moment, everything was still. Two civilizations facing each other across the void of space, one ancient and powerful, one young and desperate. Then the aliens fired. Beams of pure energy lanced across space, moving at the speed of light. They struck the forward screen of human ships, two frigates that had taken defensive positions ahead of the main fleet. The ship's armor meant nothing. The energy beams cut through metal like it was paper. Both frigates exploded in brilliant balls of fire and debris. Evasive maneuvers, Blake ordered. All ships scatter pattern Delta. Return fire. The human fleet broke apart, ships darting in different directions like a school of fish avoiding a predator. It was a pattern developed during the wars designed to make targeting difficult. The aliens were more advanced, but maybe they weren't expecting prey that fought back intelligently. The Valiant dove beneath the alien mothership, her railguns firing. Solid metal slugs, accelerated to tremendous speeds, hammered against the alien shields. Most bounced off harmlessly, but Ryan saw a few penetrate through, scarring the dark hull. Maria's orbital platforms opened fire, catching the alien scout ships as they launched from the mothership. The scouts weren't shielded like the main vessel. They exploded under the railgun barrage, small victories in what was shaping up to be a devastating battle. Ryan gripped his command chair as the Valiant shook from a near miss. The shields held barely. Target their weapon ports. Concentrate fire. The human fleet was fighting for its life, and Earth watched from below, hoping that 12 old warships and the courage of their crews would be enough. Jake Morrison stared at the screen in disbelief. The numbers didn't make sense. Nothing should be moving that fast in deep space, and certainly nothing should be slowing down from those impossible speeds near Jupiter's orbit. Lisa, are you seeing this? He called across the monitoring station. Lisa Chang looked up from her console, her tired eyes focusing on her own displays. She had been working the night shift for 6 hours straight, watching nothing but empty space and distant stars. Now her screen showed something that made her heart race. Confirmed. Unknown object, massive size, decelerating from faster-than-light velocity, she said, her voice steady despite the fear creeping into her chest. The Deep Space Monitoring Station in Colorado had been watching the stars for 23 years since the scorching wars ended. Those terrible wars had nearly destroyed humanity. Cities had burned. Billions had died. The survivors had spent 2 decades just trying to rebuild some form of normal life. They watched the skies now, but only to track asteroids and space debris. Nobody expected to find something like this. Paul Henderson rushed over from the communications section. His coffee mug clattered on the desk as he pulled up the data feeds. This can't be right. The size readings say it's over 3 kilometers long. Jake felt his stomach tighten. He had been a soldier during the wars. He knew what it meant when something unexpected appeared. Get me a visual. Use everything we have. Hubble array, lunar telescopes, everything. The 3 of them worked frantically, routing power to every telescope and sensor they could access. The old equipment grown to life, much of it rebuilt from salvaged parts after the wars. Earth's technology was a shadow of what it had been before the fighting started. But it was enough. When the image finally appeared on the main screen, all 3 of them fell silent. The ship hung in space like a dark cathedral. Its hull was smooth and black, reflecting starlight in strange patterns. The design was alien in ways that hurt to look at, with curves and angles that seemed wrong somehow. Lights pulsed along its surface in colors that didn't quite match anything Jake had seen before. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "We need to report this now," Lisa whispered. "This is first contact." Jake nodded and reached for the emergency communication system. His hand shook slightly as he entered the codes. Within minutes, he was connected to General Patricia Hayes at the Defense Coalition headquarters. "General, this is Commander Morrison at Deep Space Station, Colorado. We have detected an unknown vessel of alien origin approaching Earth from Jupiter's orbit. It's decelerating and appears to be on an intercept course. There was a long pause on the other end. Jake could hear muffled voices and the sound of alarms beginning to ring. Confirmed, Commander. Hold your position and continue monitoring. I'm convening an emergency session now. Send me everything you have. The next few hours passed in a blur. Jake's small team worked non-stop, gathering every piece of data they could. The alien ship continued its steady approach, moving at speeds that should have been impossible. It ignored every attempt at communication. Radio signals, laser pulses, mathematical sequences, everything humanity tried was met with silence. Around the world, leaders gathered in secure bunkers. President Daniel Carter of the North American Alliance stood in the rebuilt Situation Room, watching the same images that Jake was seeing. His face was pale. Beside him, Premier Liu Wei of the Eastern Federation looked equally shaken. How long until it reaches orbital range? Carter asked. General Hayes stood at the front of the room, her uniform crisp despite the late hour. She had been a captain during the scorching wars and had earned her position through blood and sacrifice. 72 hours, Mr. President. Maybe less if it increases speed. Can we fight it? Liu Wei asked the question everyone was thinking. Hayes looked at the massive alien ship on the screen. She thought about Earth's battered defenses, the handful of old warships still in service, the weapons that barely worked anymore. I don't know, but we need to prepare anyway. Back at the monitoring station, Lisa discovered something troubling. Jake, look at this trajectory. It's not just heading toward Earth. It's positioning itself above our major cities. New Seattle, New Beijing, London Reconstruction Zone. Paul pulled up population maps and overlaid them with the alien ship's projected course. His face went white. It's targeting population centers, either for observation or for something worse. Jake felt the old soldier instincts kicking in. He had seen enough war to know when someone was planning an attack. The alien ship's approach wasn't random. It was deliberate, calculated, threatening. General Hayes needs to see this, he said, already typing up the report. Around Earth, humanity began to wake up to a new reality. News reports spread quickly despite government attempts at control. People looked up at the night sky with new fear. The stars had always been distant and safe. Now something was coming from those stars and nobody knew what it wanted. In hidden facilities around the world, old soldiers received messages on dusty communication devices. Men and women who had retired after the wars, who had tried to forget the killing and the dying, suddenly found themselves called back to duty. The codes were clear. Protocol Omega was being activated. Captain Ryan Foster was supervising a construction crew in New Seattle when his old military communicator buzzed to life. He stared at it in shock. The device hadn't made a sound in 15 years. The message was simple. Report to Cheyenne Mountain immediately, full gear. This is not a drill. He looked up at the sky, squinting against the afternoon sun. Somewhere up there, beyond the blue atmosphere, something alien was approaching. Ryan had lost everything in the wars. His friends, his squadron, nearly his life. He thought he was done with fighting, but as he packed his old uniform and headed for the transport station, he felt something unexpected. Not fear, but determination. Humanity had survived the worst that humans could do to each other. Maybe they could survive this too. At the monitoring station, Jake watched the alien ship draw closer. It would arrive in less than 3 days. 3 days to prepare for something humanity had never faced before. 3 days to decide if they would surrender or fight. He looked at Lisa and Paul, both exhausted but still working. Around the world, millions of others were doing the same, preparing, planning, hoping. The alien ship came on, silent and unstoppable, bringing with it the unknown. But humanity had faced the unknown before. They had risen from the ashes of their own destruction. Perhaps they could do it again. Jake turned back to his screens and continued his watch. Whatever came next, Earth would face it together. The battle raged through space like nothing humanity had ever seen. The Valiant rolled hard to port, avoiding another energy beam that would have cut the ship in half. Ryan Foster felt sweat running down his face as he shouted orders to his crew. Amy, bring us around. Greg, hit them with everything we have. The battlecruiser spun in space, her railguns firing continuously. Missiles streaked from her launch tubes, nuclear warheads that humanity had hoped never to use again. Most were destroyed by the alien point defense systems, but a few got through. detonating against the shields in brilliant flashes of light. Admiral Blake's Defiant took a direct hit. The experimental shields held, but barely. Sparks flew across the bridge as systems overloaded. Blake gripped his command chair and kept giving orders, his voice calm despite the chaos. All ships, concentrate fire on Section 7 of the mothership. Their shields are weakest there. Maria hit them with the orbital platforms. High above, Maria Santos was already working. She had coordinated 40 defense platforms into a single firing solution. All platforms fire on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark. 40 railguns fired simultaneously. The magnetic accelerators hurled metal slugs at incredible speeds. The combined barrage overwhelmed a section of the alien shields. For just a moment, the protective field flickered and failed. Now, Blake shouted. Hit that section while it's down. 3 human destroyers dove in, their weapons blazing. They poured fire into the exposed section of the alien hull. Explosions blossomed along the mothership's surface. For the first time since the battle began, humanity was actually hurting the enemy. But the aliens weren't helpless. The mothership rotated, bringing undamaged sections to face the human fleet. More energy beams lanced out. The destroyer Liberty took a direct hit and broke apart, her crew of 300 dying in an instant. The cruiser Guardian lost her entire forward section, tumbling through space as her remaining crew tried desperately to stabilize. Ryan saw the Guardian dying and felt his heart clench. He had friends on that ship, but there was no time to mourn. The battle wasn't over. Greg, I need that shield frequency Lisa mentioned. Can you find the pattern? Greg Palmer's fingers flew over his console. He was analyzing every shot the aliens fired, looking for the rhythm in their shield pulses. During the Scorching Wars, he had been known as the best tactical analyst in the fleet. Now he needed to prove it again. Got it, Captain. Their shields pulse at 0.7-second intervals. If we time our shots perfectly, we can slip through. Send it to the fleet, Ryan ordered. The information spread quickly. Human ships began timing their attacks, firing in the tiny gaps when the alien shields were at their weakest. It wasn't much, but it was something. Slowly, painfully, they were making the aliens bleed. On Earth, Vincent Shaw was still reeling from the visions the artifact had shown him. He understood now what the aliens wanted and why they were willing to kill for it. The crystalline device wasn't just technology. It was a witness to genocide, carrying the memories and knowledge of a civilization that the Collective had destroyed thousands of years ago. Kate, we need to get this information to General Hayes. The artifact, it's the key to everything. Kate was already typing frantically. Transmitting now. Vincent, if this thing is what you think it is, we can't let the aliens have it. It's the only proof that their victims existed. Vincent looked at the pulsing crystal. Somewhere in its structure was the essence of an entire species, preserved in digital form. The Collective wanted it destroyed, wanted to erase all evidence of what they had done. They had killed 1,000 worlds and they couldn't allow any record to survive. But humanity had found the record. And now the aliens wanted them dead too. In Cheyenne Mountain, General Hayes received Vincent's transmission. She read it twice, not quite believing what she was seeing. Then she opened a channel to Admiral Blake. Admiral, we know what they want. The artifact from Antarctica, it's not just technology. It's a survivor from a species they wiped out. They came here to destroy it and silence the evidence of their crimes. Blake dodged another energy beam, his ship shaking from the near miss. Then we definitely can't let them have it, General. Agreed. Dr. Shaw says the artifact can be integrated with your ship's systems. It wants to help us fight. It wants revenge. Blake looked at the tactical display. His fleet was battered, 5 ships destroyed, 3 more heavily damaged. The alien mothership was hurt too, but it was still far more powerful than anything humanity had. They needed an advantage. Send the integration protocols to the Valiant. Captain Foster's shields are already running on the alien technology. Let's see what else it can do. On the Valiant, Ryan received the data and immediately sent it to engineering. His chief engineer, a woman named Linda Harper, looked at the protocols and shook her head. Captain, this is insane. We'd be linking an alien intelligence directly into our ship's systems. If it decides to turn against us, we're dead. Ryan thought about the choice. Trust an alien artifact or face certain defeat. Do it anyway. We're dead if we don't try. Linda worked quickly, her hands steady despite her fear. She connected the crystalline power cord to the ship's main computer. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every screen on the ship flickered and changed. The artifact's consciousness spread through the Valiant systems like water finding cracks. Ryan felt it in his mind, a presence that was both alien and somehow familiar. Images flashed before his eyes. He saw worlds of incredible beauty, civilizations that had built wonders across 100 star systems. And he saw them all burning as the collective came. The artifact spoke directly into his thoughts, not in words but in pure meaning. It showed him what the collective truly was, an empire built on fear and genocide. They eliminated any species that might one day challenge them, killing civilizations when they were young and weak. Humanity's crime was surviving the scorching wars. They had proven themselves too stubborn to die easily, so the collective had come to finish them. But the artifact also showed him something else. The collective had weaknesses. Their shields, their weapons, their tactics, all of it was in the artifact's memory. It had watched them destroy its creators. It had learned how they fought, and now it wanted to teach humanity how to fight back. Ryan felt the ship change around him. Systems that had been old and failing suddenly ran smoothly. Weapons that had been limited suddenly had new capabilities. The shield strengthened, powered by technology humanity didn't understand but could now use. "Captain, we're reading massive power increases across all systems," Greg reported, his voice filled with awe. "Weapons efficiency up 200%. Shields at 3 times previous strength, and we're getting targeting data for the alien mothership. Weak points, firing patterns, everything." Ryan smiled grimly. The artifact had just evened the odds. He opened a channel to Admiral Blake. "Admiral, the Valiant is ready to take point." "We know how to hurt them now." Blake didn't hesitate. "Do it, Captain. All ships support the Valiant. Let's show these aliens what happens when they pick a fight with humanity." The Valiant surged forward, her engines burning bright. The artifact guided Ryan's decisions, showing him exactly where to strike and when. He dove beneath the alien mothership, targeting the power conduits that fed its main weapons. His railguns, now firing with inhuman precision, hit perfectly. Explosions rippled along the alien hull. One of the mothership's main weapon ports went dark, then another. The collective ship was taking real damage now, more than it had in the entire battle so far. But the aliens adapted quickly. They focused all their remaining weapons on the Valiant. Energy beams converged from multiple angles, trying to overwhelm the battlecruiser's shields. The artifact pulsed with power, and the shields held. Barely. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Linda reported from engineering. Shields at 30% and falling." Ryan knew they couldn't take much more punishment. But they had bought time for the rest of the fleet. "Time for humanity to strike back, all ships now," Blake ordered. "Hit them while they're focused on the Valiant." The remaining human warships attacked from every direction. Missiles and railgun fire poured into the alien vessel. Maria's orbital platforms fired again, their coordinated barrage finding weak spots in the shields. Even Betty's ground-based plasma cannons joined in, their experimental beams reaching up from Earth's surface to strike at the enemy. The alien mothership shuddered under the assault. Its shields flickered and failed in multiple sections. Fires burned along its hull where atmosphere vented into space, but it wasn't dead yet, not by a long shot. The mothership began to move, repositioning itself above Earth's major cities. Ryan understood immediately what they were planning. If they couldn't win the space battle, they would bombard the planet directly, kill billions and leave humanity too broken to ever recover. "Admiral, they're preparing for planetary bombardment," he reported. Blake's face appeared on Ryan's screen. The old admiral looked tired but determined. "Then we stop them, Captain. No matter what it costs." The alien mothership hung above Earth like a sword ready to fall. Inside its massive hull, weapons charged with enough power to level entire cities. On the ground, billions of people looked up at the sky, knowing they might have only minutes to live. Colonel Betty Morrison watched her tactical displays as red warning indicators appeared over New Seattle, New Beijing, and London. The alien ship was targeting the 3 largest population centers on Earth. Over 800 million people lived in those cities and their surrounding areas. "All plasma cannons. Prepare to fire on my command," she said, her voice steady. "Atmospheric fighters intercept pattern Gamma. If they launch bombardment rods, shoot them down." She knew it was probably hopeless. Her weapons were experimental, her fighters were old, and the alien firepower was overwhelming. But she would try anyway. That was what humans did. They tried even when it seemed impossible. High above, Admiral Blake made a decision that he knew might be his last. He opened a channel to 3 ships, the Defiant, the Warrior, and the Independence. All 3 were equipped with Vincent's experimental power cores, unstable alien technology that could explode if overloaded. Captains, this is Admiral Blake. I'm ordering a suicide run. We ram the mothership with our power cores set to overload. The explosion should be enough to cripple their bombardment systems. There was a moment of silence. Then Captain Helen Price of the Warrior responded. Understood, Admiral. It's been an honor. Captain Luis Gomez of the Independence was next. My crew is ready, sir. For Earth. Blake nodded, feeling the weight of sending good people to their deaths. For Earth. Set your course. We launch in 30 seconds. But before Blake could give the final order, Ryan Foster's voice cut through the communication channel. Admiral, wait. There's another way. On the Valiant, Ryan was listening to the artifact's consciousness as it showed him a different solution. The alien power cores weren't just weapons. They could be used as a trap, a lure that the collective couldn't resist. The artifact says they want it intact. Ryan explained quickly. It's irreplaceable to them, a record of their crimes. If we use it as bait, we can draw them in close. Then we hit them with everything we have at point-blank range. Blake considered for 3 seconds. 3 seconds that felt like hours. What's the risk? High, but it doesn't waste 3 ships and their crews. The Valiant will fly directly at the mothership. When we're close enough, the rest of the fleet hits them from behind. We catch them between us. It was risky. It was insane. But it was better than a suicide run. Blake made his choice. Do it, Captain. All ships hold position and wait for my signal. Foster, you're cleared for approach. Ryan turned to his crew. You heard the man. Amy, take us in. Greg, charge all weapons. Linda, I need the shields at maximum, but keep the power core exposed enough that they can detect it. The Valiant turned and accelerated toward the alien mothership. On the bridge, everyone knew they were flying into the jaws of death. But they also knew that Earth was depending on them. Inside the alien vessel, the collective commanders detected the approaching ship. They scanned it and found what they had been searching for. The artifact. The last survivor of a species they had destroyed millennia ago. Their entire mission had been to find it and eliminate it. The human ship was offering itself up. The collective saw it as desperation, a final meaningless gesture. They didn't understand that humans fought hardest when they had nothing left to lose. The mothership's weapons swiveled to target the Valiant. But the orders from the collective commanders were clear. Disable the ship, don't destroy it. Capture the artifact intact. Energy beams fired, but at reduced power. They struck the Valiant's shields, which flared bright but held. The battlecruiser kept coming, accelerating hard. Shields at 50%, Linda reported. We can't take many more hits. Ryan watched the distance close. 1,000 meters. 800. 500. Steady. Keep going. Greg Palmer had his finger over the firing controls. Captain, we're in optimal range. Not yet, Ryan said, trusting the artifact's guidance. Closer. 300 meters. 200. The alien mothership filled their entire view now. A wall of dark metal and pulsing lights. Ryan could see the individual weapon ports, the scarred sections where human weapons had hit home. 100 meters. Now, Ryan shouted. All weapons fire. The Valiant unleashed everything she had. Railguns hammered the alien hull at point-blank range. Missiles launched and detonated instantly. The experimental plasma weapons that Vincent had installed fired, their beams cutting through armor like hot knives through butter. At the same moment, Admiral Blake gave the order to the rest of the fleet. All ships attack. Hit them from behind. 7 human warships dove in from different angles, their weapons blazing. Maria's orbital platforms fired in perfect synchronization. Betty's ground-based cannons sent their plasma beams streaking up from Earth's surface. The alien mothership was caught in a crossfire. Their shields had been focused forward, expecting the threat from the Valiant. Now they were taking hits from every direction. Explosions blossomed across the alien hull. Critical systems failed. The bombardment weapons that had been charging to destroy Earth cities shut down as their power conduits were severed. But the collective wasn't finished. Even damaged, even dying, the mothership fired back. Energy beams lashed out in all directions. The destroyer Ranger took a direct hit and exploded. The cruiser Phoenix lost her engines and began drifting, lifeless. The Valiant shuddered as another hit penetrated her shields. Fire broke out on decks 4 and 5. The hull breach alarms were screaming. But Ryan kept the ship in position, kept firing because he knew this was their only chance. The artifact pulsed with power, drawing more and more energy from the experimental core. Ryan felt it reaching out not just to the Valiant but to the alien mothership itself. It was searching for something, then it found it. The collective kept digital records of every species they had eliminated, stored deep in their ship's computer core, billions of voices silenced forever. The artifact wanted to hear them one last time. It wanted to know it wasn't alone. The artifact's consciousness surged into the alien computer systems like a virus. It spread through their networks, finding the records, copying them, saving them. And while it was there, it did something else. It opened doors that should have stayed closed. It disabled safeties that kept critical systems stable. The alien power cores began to overload. Deep inside the mothership, the collective crew realized what was happening. They tried to shut down the cores, tried to eject them, tried anything to stop the cascade failure. But the artifact had locked them out of their own systems. "Admiral, I'm reading massive energy spikes in the alien ship," Greg reported. "Their power cores are going critical." Blake understood immediately. "All ships, retreat. Maximum speed. Get clear." The human fleet scattered, burning their engines hard to put distance between themselves and the dying alien vessel. The Valiant, closest to the mothership, accelerated away with everything she had. The alien mothership tried to escape too, but it was too late. The power cores reached critical mass and exploded. The detonation was like a small sun being born and dying in the same instant. Light and heat and raw energy expanded outward in a sphere of destruction. The shockwave caught the trailing edge of the Valiant, sending the battle cruiser tumbling. Ryan held on as his ship spun through space. Alarms screamed. Systems failed. But when the spinning finally stopped and Ryan could see again, the Valiant was still intact, and the alien mothership was gone. Nothing remained but debris and fading energy signatures. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then slowly, cheering began to spread through the human fleet. They had done it. Against impossible odds, with outdated weapons and sheer determination, humanity had won. But the celebration was brief. As the fleet regrouped, the scope of the losses became clear. 5 ships destroyed. 3 more so heavily damaged they would never fly again. Over 4,000 crew members dead. Admiral Blake looked at the casualty reports and felt every death like a weight on his soul. But he also felt pride. These people had given everything to protect their home, and they had succeeded. On Earth, the celebrations were louder and lasted longer. People poured into the streets of every city, hugging strangers and crying with relief. They had been hours away from extinction. Now they had a future again. In the Australian research facility, Vincent Shaw examined the data that the artifact had downloaded from the alien ship. What he found stunned him. Records of 1,000 civilizations, each one unique and beautiful, each one destroyed by the collective. The knowledge, the art, the history of entire species all saved. "We're not just survivors," he said to Kate. "We're keepers now, guardians of everyone the collective killed. We have to make sure they're remembered." General Hayes stood in the command center at Cheyenne Mountain, watching the reports come in. The alien threat was gone, but she knew it wasn't over. The collective was an empire. They would eventually notice that their ship had been destroyed. They would send more, but that was a problem for later. For now, Earth had won, and in winning, humanity had proven something important. They weren't weak. They weren't easy prey. They were survivors, fighters, and they would not go quietly into extinction.